A desperate plea for help from a woman who'd run out of options. Most people would have ignored it. I almost did. He paused, but something made me respond. And that decision led me here, to this woman who's shown me what real strength looks like. Who took a hand up and turned it into a handout for others. Who built a department that's now setting standards across the industry. Who's an incredible mother and an even better partner. His voice wavered slightly. Lena, you didn't just accept help. You took it and multiplied it. You paid it forward to every employee you mentor, every process you improve, every person you refuse to give up on. You reminded me why I built this company in the first place, to make a difference. He raised his glass. To wrong numbers that lead to right places. To second chances. To the woman who taught me that helping others isn't about being a hero, it's about being human. I love you. Lena stood and kissed him while everyone cheered. When she pulled back, she whispered in his ear, "Best wrong number I ever sent." Tyler tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Danny, is there cake now?" Everyone laughed, and Daniel ruffled his hair. "Yes, buddy, there's cake now." As they cut the cake together, Lena, Daniel, and Tyler, Lena thought about that night 2 years ago. Sitting on her kitchen floor in the dark, desperate and alone, typing a message to the wrong number. She thought about all the moments since. The struggle and the triumph. The fear and the hope. The slow building of a life she'd stopped believing was possible. And she thought about how sometimes, the wrong turn leads you exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly right. The end. Thank you for reading Lena and Daniel's story. If this touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more stories about unexpected connections, second chances, and the beautiful accidents that change our lives forever. The boarding pass notification pinged on Jake's phone just as I was zipping up my overnight bag. I glanced over his shoulder, casually, the way you do when you're comfortable with someone after 3 years together, and felt my stomach drop into my shoes. Seattle to Boston. Flight 7:15 a.m. Passenger, Jake Morrison. One ticket. Babe, why does your flight confirmation say 1 passenger? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Jake looked up from his phone, and I watched something flicker across his face. Was it guilt? Irritation? He cleared his throat. Oh, yeah, about that. I could only get 1 ticket. You know how expensive last-minute flights are right now? I figured you could drive. It's not that bad. I stared at him. We were supposed to be traveling together from Seattle to Boston to meet his parents for Thanksgiving. We'd been planning this trip for 2 months. I'd requested time off work, bought new outfits, and mentally prepared myself for the nerve-wracking experience of finally meeting the people who raised the man I thought I'd marry. Not that bad? I repeated. Jake, that's a 45-hour drive. Across the entire country. You know I've never done a road trip like that alone. You won't be alone, he said, turning back to his packing with infuriating nonchalance. I already arranged everything. My buddy Tyler is driving cross-country tomorrow morning. He has space in his car. He's a careful driver, super responsible. You'll be fine. Your buddy Tyler? The one I've met exactly once at your company picnic? That Tyler? He's a good guy, Sarah. What's the problem? What's the problem? I wanted to laugh, but the sound that came out was something between a scoff and a gasp. The problem is that we're supposed to be going together, as a couple, to meet your parents, for the first time. And you're going to arrive on a comfortable 5-hour flight while I'm stuck in a car for almost 2 days straight with someone I barely know? Jake finally looked at me properly, and I saw the impatience in his eyes that had been appearing more frequently lately. Sarah, you're making this into a big deal when it's not. My mom needs me there early to help with preparations. You know how she is about Thanksgiving. The flight was crazy expensive, almost $800 per ticket. That's $1,600 for both of us. That's irresponsible when there's a perfectly good alternative. Then why didn't you drive too? We could have made it a road trip together. Because I need to be there early, he repeated, slower this time, as if I were a child who couldn't grasp simple concepts. To help with preparations. I sat down on the edge of his bed, my overnight bag slipping from my hands. 3 years. 3 years of late-night video calls when he traveled for work and lazy Sunday mornings making pancakes together. 3 years of meeting his friends, supporting his promotion at work, being patient when he was stressed. 3 years of being told I was different from his exes, that I was the one. And now, when it came to the moment that actually mattered, meeting his family, being presented as his partner, I was an afterthought. A budget concern. Someone who could be shipped separately, like cargo. Did it occur to you, I said quietly, to ask me how I felt about this before making all these arrangements? Oh, come on. I knew you'd understand. You're not like other girls who make drama over every little thing. There it was. That phrase that had always made me feel special before now made me feel like a fool. How many times had I swallowed my feelings, minimized my needs, stayed quiet when something bothered me, all to maintain this image of being the cool girlfriend who didn't make drama? I need to go home, I said, standing abruptly. What? Sarah, don't be like this. We can talk about it. Can we? Because it sounds like you've already made all the decisions. What's there to talk about? Jake's face hardened. Fine. Go home and sulk. But Tyler is leaving at 6 a.m. tomorrow. If you want to make it to my mom's Thanksgiving dinner, that's your ride. Otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. I grabbed my bag and left without another word. The Uber ride back to my apartment in Capitol Hill was a blur of streetlights and unshed tears. I kept replaying the conversation, trying to find the moment where I could have said something different, argued better, made him understand. But the truth was sinking in like a stone. This wasn't about the flight. This was about what the flight represented. When I got home, my roommate Jessica was curled up on the couch with her laptop. She took one look at my face and closed the computer. What did he do? Told her everything. By the time I finished, she was pacing the living room, her blonde ponytail swishing with each angry turn. Sarah, please tell me you're not seriously considering getting in a car with this Tyler person and driving for 2 days straight across the country to go meet the parents of a man who just showed you exactly how much he values you. It's Thanksgiving, I said weakly. He's expecting me there. He should have expected you on that flight next to him. Jessica's voice rose. Girl, listen to yourself. You're making excuses for behavior that is absolutely not okay. This isn't about money. If it was, he would have suggested you both drive. This is about him not caring enough to consider your comfort, your safety, or your feelings. I knew she was right. But there was this voice in my head, the one that had been cultivated by every romantic comedy, every love song, every piece of advice that told women to be understanding, to be flexible, to not be too demanding. The voice that whispered maybe I was overreacting, maybe this was just how relationships worked, maybe love meant compromise. What if I'm making too big a deal out of this? I asked. Jessica sat down next to me and took my hand. Then let me ask you this. If the roles were reversed, would you have done this to him? Would you have booked yourself a comfortable flight and left him to find his own way on a 2-day road trip, with people you barely know, to meet your parents for the first time? The answer was immediate and obvious. Never. I would have saved up longer, looked for cheaper flights, delayed the trip, anything but leave him behind while I traveled in comfort. Exactly, Jessica said, reading the answer on my face. The way someone treats you when it's inconvenient to treat you well? That's when you see who they really are. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept checking my phone, part of me hoping Jake would call, would apologize, would say he'd made a mistake and was rebooking the flight for both of us. But my screen stayed dark. At 5:30 a.m., my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Tyler. Jake gave me your number. I'm leaving in 30 minutes. You coming? I stared at that message for a long time. I thought about Jake, probably already at SeaTac Airport, sipping his overpriced Starbucks in the departure lounge. I thought about his mother's Thanksgiving dinner, about the outfit I'd bought, about the speech I'd practiced in my head about how wonderful her son was. Then I thought about something my grandmother told me before she died. A man who truly loves you will move mountains to protect you from discomfort, not be the cause of it. I typed out my response. Thanks, Tyler. I won't be joining you. Safe travels. Then I opened my chat with Jake. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have written a long message explaining my feelings, outlining all the reasons why his behavior was hurtful, giving him a chance to understand and apologize. But I realized I'd been explaining and justifying and educating him about my feelings for 3 years. This time, the situation explained itself. I won't be coming to Boston. Enjoy Thanksgiving. His response came surprisingly quickly for someone who was supposedly about to board a flight. Are you serious right now? You're going to embarrass me in front of my whole family because you're in your feelings? There it was again. My feelings reduced to being in my feelings, as if emotions were some kind of temporary irrationality rather than valid responses to being treated poorly. You embarrassed yourself, I typed back. You just don't realize it yet. I turned off my phone. The first few hours were hard. I kept second-guessing myself, kept wondering if I'd just thrown away a 3-year relationship over a plane ticket. But every time I started to waver, I remembered that feeling of seeing the boarding pass with one name on it. The casual way he'd said "you'll be fine," as if my comfort and safety were minor details to be sorted out after his own needs were met. Jessica was proud of me, though. "Thank God," she said when I told her I wasn't going. "I was worried I'd have to physically prevent you from getting in that car." "I still feel bad," I admitted, like I'm being dramatic. "Sarah, when a man shows you who he is, believe him. This isn't about one flight. Think about it. How many times has Jake made decisions without consulting you? How many times have you adjusted your plans, your needs, your feelings to accommodate him?" As I sat there, I started making a mental list. The time he canceled our anniversary dinner because his college buddies invited him to a Seahawks game, and got angry when I was upset. The time he forgot to mention he'd invited his ex-girlfriend to his birthday party. The time he told me my dress was too revealing for his company holiday party and asked me to change, making us an hour late. Small things, I'd told myself. Things every couple deals with. But they weren't small. They were breadcrumbs leading to this moment, where I was expected to spend 2 days in a car with a stranger while he flew in comfort, and somehow, I was supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to attend his mother's Thanksgiving dinner at all. My phone stayed off for most of the day. When I finally turned it on that evening, there were 23 missed calls from Jake and a string of texts that escalated from confusion to anger to manipulation. "Where are you? Tyler said you didn't show up. My mom is asking about you. What am I supposed to tell her? You're really going to make me look bad like this? After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? You know what? Maybe this is for the best. I was starting to wonder if you were mature enough for marriage anyway." That last text should have hurt, but instead, it clarified everything. Because in his mind, maturity meant accepting whatever scraps of consideration he offered without complaint. It meant being so desperate for his approval that I'd accept being treated as less than. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I called my sister. "Emma, can I ask you something? And I need you to be completely honest with me." "Always," my older sister said. "What's going on?" I told her the story. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Sarah," she finally said, her voice gentle but firm, "I've been waiting for you to see this for 2 years. What do you mean? Jake has never treated you like a priority. You know David would never." She stopped herself. "Sorry, I know you don't like when I compare. David was Emma's husband. They'd been married for 5 years, and I'd watched how he treated her with consistent respect, consideration, and genuine partnership. I'd told myself that every relationship was different, that I shouldn't compare. But maybe I should have been paying more attention. "No, go ahead," I said. "What wouldn't David do? He wouldn't book himself a flight and leave me to find my own way across the country. He wouldn't make major decisions about our plans without asking me first. He wouldn't dismiss my feelings as drama whenever I expressed hurt or disappointment. Sarah, love isn't supposed to make you feel like you're asking for too much when you want basic respect." I spent the weekend thinking. I even went for a long walk around Green Lake on Saturday, watching families feed the ducks and couples holding hands, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake or the best decision of my life. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. When Jake called, he'd returned to Seattle Sunday night, I finally answered. "Sarah, thank God. Look, I think we need to talk about what happened. My mom was very disappointed you didn't come, but I explained you weren't feeling well. You lied to her? I was trying to save face for both of us. You have no idea how embarrassing it was too." "Jake," I interrupted. "I don't want to do this anymore." Silence. "Do what?" "This. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm an afterthought, where I have to fight to be treated with the same consideration you expect from me." "Oh, come on. You're really going to break up with me over a flight? Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds?" "It's not about the flight," I said, and I felt the truth of it settle into my bones. "It's about what the flight revealed. It's about you making a decision that affected both of us without even asking how I felt. It's about you prioritizing your comfort over my safety and dignity. It's about you calling me immature and dramatic when I set a boundary." Boundary? This is what happens when you spend too much time on TikTok, reading all that feminist nonsense. I was trying to be practical, and you? "I deserve someone who doesn't see treating me well as impractical," I said. "I deserve someone who considers my feelings without me having to beg for it. and I'm done settling for less than that. Fine, Jake said. And his voice was cold now. Go ahead and throw away 3 years over nothing. But don't come crying to me when you're still single at 35 because you had impossible standards. I almost laughed. Impossible standards. As if wanting to be consulted about travel plans that involved me was asking for the moon. Goodbye, Jake. I hung up before he could respond. The weeks that followed were strange. I felt lighter, somehow, as if I'd been carrying weight I didn't realize was there. Yes, there were moments of doubt. Moments when I missed the good parts of our relationship, the inside jokes, the familiar comfort of being with someone who knew me. But those moments were always followed by the memory of that boarding pass, and the realization that someone who truly knew me, truly valued me, would never have put me in that situation in the first place. My friends rallied around me. Jessica took me out for Thai food and margaritas. Emma sent me care packages with my favorite tea and chocolate. Even my mother, who I'd expected to be disappointed about the breakup, she'd liked Jake, or at least liked the idea of me being settled, surprised me. I'm proud of you, she said when I told her what happened over FaceTime. Really? I thought you'd say I was being too hasty. Sarah, I stayed in a marriage with your father for 15 years after I should have left. I kept thinking things would change, that my love would be enough to make him treat me better. It wasn't. I don't want that life for you. You did what I didn't have the courage to do. You walked away when you saw the warning signs instead of waiting until you had children and a mortgage and a life so entangled that leaving felt impossible. It was the most vulnerable conversation I'd ever had with my mother. We both cried. 3 months later, I ran into Tyler at a mutual friend's holiday party. I almost didn't recognize him. He was dressed in a nice sweater and jeans, looking much more put together than I remembered from our brief meeting at Jake's company picnic. Sarah, he said, his face lighting up with recognition. Wow, it's good to see you. You too, I said, slightly awkward. How are you? I'm well, thanks. Listen, I wanted to say, I heard about what happened with you and Jake, that whole Boston trip situation. I just want you to know, if I'd known the full story, I would never have agreed to be part of that plan. I was surprised by his directness. You knew about it? He told me you couldn't afford the flight and were too proud to let him pay for you, so I was doing him a favor by giving you a ride. I believed him because, well, he was a friend. But after you didn't show up and everything came out, man, I was pissed. That's not how you treat someone you claim to love. Thank you for saying that, I said, touched by his honesty. I appreciate it. Jake called me a few weeks ago, Tyler continued. He's seeing someone new. From what he mentioned, he's already pulling the same patterns. I tried to talk to him about it, but he shrugged. Some people aren't ready to learn. I felt a pang of sympathy for whoever that new girl was, but I also felt grateful. Grateful that I'd gotten out when I did, before there were bigger entanglements, before the pattern became so normalized that I forgot what healthy love looked like. How about you? Tyler asked. Are you seeing anyone? No, I said, and smiled. I'm dating myself right now. Figuring out what I actually want and need. It's been good. That's important, he said. Well, if you ever want to grab coffee or something, just as friends, I'd like that. I think we got off on the wrong foot with the whole awkward situation, and you seem like someone worth knowing. I looked at him, really looked at him. There was no agenda in his eyes, no expectation, just genuine interest and respect. I'd like that, I said. We exchanged numbers, and I walked away feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not hope that Tyler would be my next relationship. It was far too early for that, and I meant what I said about dating myself. But hope that there were people out there who understood what it meant to treat others with dignity. Hope that my standards weren't too high, they were exactly where they should be. 6 months after the breakup, I was promoted at work to senior marketing manager. The celebration dinner my colleagues threw at a restaurant in downtown Seattle felt like a vindication of all the energy I'd poured back into myself after ending things with Jake. I'd stopped spending so much emotional bandwidth managing his moods, anticipating his needs, making myself smaller to accommodate his ego. And in that space, I'd flourished. Jessica raised her glass at the dinner. To Sarah, who taught us all that knowing your worth isn't arrogance, it's survival. I clinked glasses with her and thought about the girl who'd packed that overnight bag 6 months ago, ready to spend 2 days in a car with a stranger just to avoid disappointing a man who'd already disappointed her. She felt like a different person now. Not because she was single. Being in a relationship didn't make me less valuable, but because she finally understood that love, real love, doesn't ask you to diminish yourself to make room for it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw it was from Jake's sister, Rachel, who I'd genuinely liked during our time together. "Hey Sarah, I know it's been a while. I just wanted to reach out because I heard what Jake did, and I'm so sorry. I also wanted you to know that I've been thinking about how we as a family might have enabled some of his behavior. You deserved better. I hope you're doing well." It was unexpected and deeply appreciated. I wrote back thanking her and telling her I was doing great, because I was. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based on what I wanted, not what someone else expected from me. I was learning to recognize red flags early instead of painting them green in my mind. I was understanding that a person's potential means nothing compared to their current actions. And I was learning that the right person, when I was ready for them, wouldn't make me feel like I was asking for too much when I asked for the bare minimum of respect. The story of the boyfriend who made me travel by road while he flew might seem like it's about that one moment, that one decision. But it was really about a pattern I'd been ignoring, a voice I'd been suppressing, and a choice I finally found the courage to make. Sometimes the most important journey isn't the one we planned. Sometimes it's the one we take when we finally decide we're worth more than being someone's afterthought. Sometimes it's the journey home to ourselves. A year later, I was sitting in a cafe on Capitol Hill with Tyler, who had become a genuine friend, when he asked me if I'd ever regretted my decision. "Not once," I said, and meant it. That road trip I didn't take ended up being the best trip I never made, because it led me somewhere better, to a version of myself who knows that love should never feel like I'm begging for breadcrumbs. He smiled. "For what it's worth, I think Jake lost something irreplaceable when he lost you." "Maybe," I said, "but I found something irreplaceable when I found myself again. And that's worth more than any relationship where I have to shrink to fit." As I walked home that evening, I passed by Pike Place Market, watching tourists take photos and street musicians play their guitars. The Space Needle stood tall in the distance, and I thought about how flying isn't always about the destination. Sometimes it's about refusing to stay grounded when someone else tries to clip your wings. I'd chosen to fly, just not in the way Jake had expected, and I'd never felt more free. The rain started to fall, that gentle Seattle drizzle that locals don't even bother with umbrellas for anymore. I tilted my face up to the sky and smiled, letting the drops land on my cheeks like tiny blessings. Somewhere across the country, there was a version of me that had taken that road trip, that had sat in Tyler's car for 45 hours, that had arrived exhausted and diminished, to meet the family of someone who didn't value her. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was about the woman who looked at a boarding pass with one name on it and chose to write her own ticket instead. The woman who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to go somewhere you're not truly wanted. The woman who discovered that self-respect isn't selfish, it's survival. And as I walked through the rain-slicked streets of Seattle, past the coffee shops and bookstores and the life I'd built for myself, I knew with absolute certainty I had made the right choice. The best journeys, I'd learned, are the ones that lead you back to yourself.